Listeners everywhere, welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, the weekly fix for your screen addiction and a trusted source for discussion of all things film and television. Please keep in mind that for the purposes of this podcast, Joel and Ryan are not acting as journalists, but rather fellow moving picture enthusiasts. All of their opinions should be taken as such. Also, please be warned that while Joel and Ryan may seem like petulant children, they are, in fact, adults who may occasionally use adult language. While they promise to bleep out all the worst words, it's a good bet you will still understand what they were saying. And now, with no further ado, here's Joel and Ryan.
Hey, everybody.
Hey-ho.
Hi.
How'd you like that? Woo, 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 Joel. Did you like that one?
It's great. No, you had in the early days when we were doing this on Zoom, when we came back, when the pandemic, hit and everything, we had tried for a while that I would do the opening, but the oohs never quite lined up because because of the digital age, you're hearing this, slightly, split second later than everything.
Yeah, and Zoom didn't like that. Didn't want to accept the first noise I made, so it distorted it as well, which was weird.
Yeah. You'd get instead of the ooh, it'd always be like
yeah, it would. Yeah, exactly.
And it was like, hey, come on, Zoom. But yeah, no, that's a solid one.
I felt like I nailed it. I felt like last week I sort of Chuck Norris'd it a little bit, so wanted to get back on track.
That's fair. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. I'm Joel.
And I'm Ryan.
And you're joining us on a casual Saturday when we're recording this. And this is actually show 2 of the day because Ryan and I are very busy, very popular people. But we also love you. We love you dearly, dear listeners. And so we wanted to make sure that we, last 2 weeks ago, we didn't have a show because I was sick and Ryan was a little bit sick or a little under the weather too, physically. And so
indisposed.
He was indisposed. Yep. And
sick is not exactly accurate, but indisposed covers a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he was day to day. He was on the injury report as day to day.
We both had minor ailments causing us problems, so
we're just like, man, let's just take a week off. But so we didn't, we got things going on in our lives, so we wanted to make sure that we had another show for you guys, and this way, we can sort of keep the love, keep the momentum, the Joe-mentum, if need be. And but then we were like, okay, but then what are we going to talk about? And we realized, hey, I don't know. So we and then that sparked a larger meta conversation that we had about all of the topics that we still have to talk about that we have compiled over the years. Some of them, most of them real, some of them not so much. Some of them have helped us spark our way onto other topics. And we kind of thought, well, let's kind of go back and maybe, this might, you could view this as maybe we're culling the list here a little bit, getting rid of things that we're never going to talk about. Maybe we're like, okay, there's something here, but how would we do this? How would we talk about this? So we thought, let's bring you it's been 5 years. This has been a 5-year relationship between Ryan and I and you, the listener. Unless this is your first show, in which, welcome. Hey, we're happy that you're here. Don't know how you
should not. This should not be your first show.
Sure. Go back and listen to the sword fighting, the duel episode from several years ago, or maybe the what were some of our other? You know what? That's one of the topics that we had to start us. Right, we were going to do the top 5 movie shows with Joel and Ryan so far.
Was it? Oh,
yeah, that was one of the topics we came. Yeah, that's one of the topics we came up with.
But this show basically is the shows that we didn't do and why, and maybe a few things could happen. One, it might be funny to hear some of these because you see when we're trying when we're saying yes to something like best simian sidekicks, what are we saying no to exactly? So you get to hear some of that.
You know what?
We assume that'll be funny and fun. We'll see. The other thing that might happen is we might do a mini show for a bunch of these categories that maybe can't be padded out into an actual show.
Right.
We might do them right here. It could happen. And the other thing is maybe there's some good ones in here. There are. I know there are.
Yeah.
Where this conversation will spark us to actually do a show about them in the future. Or if you guys hear anything, any suggestions, some of these might be suggestions that listeners have made. They have sent them in and we have discussed them. So
yeah.
One of the best ones is one of the best ones was from, I can't remember her handle. She's a friend of ours. She's got a very cool internet handle. It was about novels, right? Novelizations.
Oh, yeah.
And just talk about adapting a novel and the difference between a film and a novel.
Was that Sugar Cube Girl? Was that Sugar Cube Girl?
Sugar Cube Girl. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, it absolutely was. Thanks for remembering that. That's awesome. Its breadth, though, is massive, and so it's
right.
That's that the most common reason things are rejected is because they are massive or they are tiny. So you get to hear a bunch of those, which is fun. That one's massive and it's a great idea, but it's sort of that idea of adaptations and novels being adapted into films, and do they make good films, and is the film better? Like that finds its way in natural. That's a thread that goes through not all of these shows, but many, many, many of them. So that really is a thing worth talking about. Is it a thing we could make a show out of? It's tough to say if we could, because once you start talking about Silence of the Lambs, or once you start talking about The Godfather, you're talking about that, and then where are you? It's a very difficult thing to pin down and to compartmentalize, I guess. Whereas other things are just like, that's great, it's fun, but we can't do a whole show about that. So,
to which I say, hey, we did a whole show about simian sidekicks. We can do anything.
Well, that's one of the ones that would have been rejected. That survived. It lived.
Yeah, that show existed beyond our better judgment, beyond its own. I mean, it should have never survived. It was ready to die at any point in our conversation, and we kept coming up with stuff.
Boilerplate reject list stuff, and yet we just did it anyway because I reacted to it the right way. In my mind, I went boom, boom, boom. I had like a top 4 right away. That's why it was doable, because otherwise I get these and I'm like, oh, that's great, but I can't think of anything. And if I can't think of anything, we're not going to be able to talk about anything. So that's what it goes down to. Unless you're talking Joel solo show, which hang in there, that might still happen.
It's got to happen at some point, because you did a solo show. I owe you a week off where I'll just record a show and you can kick back. Hell, you could even come on the show if you wanted and just sit silently while I flounder around, and you could just. I wouldn't be able
to. I would have to save you. Not to mention that I'm one of those people where if you're like strangers in the supermarket, like talking about Flash Gordon, I will interject what I think. I'm not like that anymore, actually. But as a kid and as a young adult, frankly, I mean, it's a horrible thing to be that way, but I just would be compelled to say something. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
I was like that in public.
That about myself, but that thing, it isn't killed within me. It still lives within me. So
when I will say that was the hardest thing when I lived in New York, being on the subway. Was you're overhearing everyone's conversations, and when somebody and you're just like, you're wrong. Don't say it. Because if you interject, then you're still stuck on the subway. If you're outside and you're at a supermarket or whatever, you can head down a different aisle. But if you're in the subway, you're stuck there. And so it's like you can't just go, actually, that was Samuel L. Jackson in that one, and I didn't do it, and I'm really good at not doing it to correct people. So I'm glad for that. But I always want to be like, actually, or did you know? It's all that kind of stuff, and it doesn't matter that I'm not correcting people. It's still totally unwelcome. Those people don't know you. They don't care what you think.
Shut up. That has never gone well for me in life. I learned the lesson without being able to stop the behavior. And finally, I was able to stop the behavior. Yep. I don't know how, but I just knew it was inherently a bad thing. And so I don't do that anymore. But I do it with people I do know. I will cross the room at work to get into something. I'll still do. I think I do a good job of not doing that too. But every once in a while, I cannot help and I will do it. I love talking about stuff, and believe it or not, I like listening to people talk about stuff. So it's hard. That's a thing where, especially if you're an introvert, it's hard to explain, but if you're an introvert that is as like verbose and gregarious as I am, which is really a disguise for being an intense introvert, when your chance to interact comes along, it's just really, really difficult to suppress it out of just simply because of manners. Yep. But manners are important. They're maybe more important than ever. So I do appreciate that. And
I believe it was the great, the philosophical work, The Kingsman, that said, manners maketh the man.
Well,
there ain't
lying.
But hey, if you see us eating our snacks,
because we're on show number 2 for the afternoon.
We're on show number 2. We're on afternoon.
Pretty obnoxious. I got some popcorn here. Kind of.
I have my choco moke cheese, Japanese chocolate-covered Japanese rice crackers.
My goodness.
I went fancy today. My mom was like, I think you should try these. And I'm like, yes, I should. They're good. Hey, so let's take a trip in the Wayback Machine. Let's go back to 5 years ago when we first started. Remember how this whole idea came about, of where we're just like, well, hey.
I do, but at the time we were sworn to secrecy about it. Right. There's still some details we kind of can't talk about.
Right,
if we're being smart about it, we won't talk about.
Yeah, but the bottom line is we had the opportunity to start writing down our thoughts about movies, writing some either critiques or doing criticisms of doing some film criticism, and just writing some film articles about films.
I think it was important that we were asked to write. At least it was important to me. You may have a different, but we were asked to write historical reviews.
Yeah.
This was supposed to evolve into something else, but we were asked to write historical reviews, and we were asked to pick ones from this vast genre list that we were enthusiastic about. We were asked specifically. We weren't asked specifically, but we were encouraged. The idea was to get some of these classics under our belt. So to write things that we were enthusiastic about. Yeah.
Yep. And we had a giant list, and we all had to, there were several of us located around the country that were we were all kind of working together on this stuff, and we were all just like, I want that one, I'm going to take that one, and I'm going to take that one. And that was really fun.
The last person to choose, I can tell you I didn't move very quickly.
Oh, okay. Well, I was pretty lucky. And then it was fun to sort of go, okay, am I going to talk about this movie through a modern lens? Am I going to talk about this movie as if I just saw it? It was really fun, and it was a great.
They wanted that, although I proved incapable of this, but they wanted that. I did. I mean, I can't take something from history and not provide the history. As you guys know, I just can't. And they understood that about me and accepted that about me. Thankfully, that was really nice. But that was really nice. That support was really nice. But what they wanted was you just watch this, or this is your reaction to it. It's like you would write a review of whatever's at the Cinemark right now, and they wanted it done in that style. I proved incapable.
Well, and one of the movies I chose that was on the list, and I chose it, was Wizard of Oz. What could I possibly say about Wizard of Oz that hasn't been said by literally 3,000 other people? Right. So for me, it was like, well, Wizard of Oz, there's no way Wizard of Oz could have gotten made today. and here's why. And that was that was my way in on that article. And they were like, oh yeah, I like that. That's a good take.
It would never survive the Peter Dinklage tweets alone.
Right. Indeed. But so, I bring all of this up, and we bring all of this up to talk about, so it was that, and there was that idea, that contextualization of these films, the history, the stories behind the stories, and everything that led Ryan and I to say, to go, oh, you know what, maybe we should do a podcast. Maybe we should figure out a way for us to talk about these films, not just on paper, but to actually talk about it. And so
they were planning on doing like an Entertainment Tonight, like a pretty fancy thing and all this stuff. And my idea was, well, how about we just be the morning show radio guys instead, and really get into it, like really get deep into it. All the weird little details, and
and we'd be the shock jock guys with and we'll do all the sound effects and. Yeah.
If you go back to the early shows, there is a lot of that. There's a lot more of that than there is now. There's Zoom shows, and
now it's a little bit more. Yeah, and but no, we but we did what? So we bring all of this up to say, there are several of us that were doing this, and Ryan and I moved on, and the bigger project either has fallen apart or is still in the work. We don't even know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because Ryan and I
it's still a glimmer in somebody's eye, but it's not a thing that is likely to happen. So we had to decide whether our little ambitions and ideas were worth going out on our own.
And but we did want to talk. So we created the movie show with Joel and Ryan, and we've had 5 blissful years with you, the dear listener, bringing our stories, our insight, our shenanigans, and but we wanted to also we wanted to give a shout out, give a highlight to a couple other people that were involved in this project, Indus Germination, that they have moved on to create. It inspired them to move on and create things, and that's a website called cinemascholars.com.
Cinema Scholars, what a great name. We should have asked them to name us.
Could you imagine if we were sitting here, welcome to Cinema Scholars with Joel and Ryan? Holy crap, would that have been? I mean, movie show is great, but
we had a perfect name, actually, but for copyright reasons and the fact that we were no longer associated with this bigger project, it couldn't be used.
It was going to be great.
So that's a whole nother show, right? The names that we weren't called.
I don't even know where all those are anymore, though. Because those got written down too.
Yeah, they're someplace else. But nevertheless, it's funny that we really did try and call it something less socialist and generic as the movie show with Joel and Ryan. But in the end, I think that's a good name for us because it is what we are. And I feel like if the thing you're doing to be clever isn't quite working, then at least be straightforward about what you are. And I think that serves, at least it serves my personality.
Yeah, it does. And it is a little bit straighter to the point than, which I believe was my top choice, which was Ryan and Joel talk about movies while seated on a couch.
2 guys sitting on a couch talking about movies. There was the couch thing, had several different variations.
The couch was
that we earnestly tried to make work because I think it is what the show was. Again, that's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
But the idea, how are you going to make a logo of that? How are you going to put that on a t-shirt? Like there are actual t-shirts that you can buy, so don't start writing in about that. But the idea was you should still name your show that has a marketing value to it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that one was missing. But
can I just say that what bothers me so is I do this every week and I have the tile, but the best part of the tile that our dear friend Carrie created for us, I sit right in front of the awesome
ampersand.
The ampersand made out of the film reel. It's spectacular.
I put Carrie through the ringer when we were working on that because I basically gave her every idea that we had. Even the couch was even going to be a part of this at one point.
I believe. Yes, I did find a message going. Ask her if she can make a couch in there somewhere. And exactly. And I don't even think you responded to that. I think
it overwhelmed her. And eventually, I was just like, no, don't listen to me at all. The original idea It's a logo on the side of a traveling medicine show wagon. Just do that. And then it be simplified, and then we got this.
Yep. Does that make a snake oil salesman? It might.
Well, we are to a certain degree. The metaphor is not lost on us. We admit it right in the logo.
Yep. But we are, but the cinema scholars, we wanted to give a shout out to Diana De La Torre and Diana De La Torre.
It's hard because it really is spelled Diana conventionally, but it's Diana.
Diana De La Torre and
Rebecca Elliott, amongst others.
Yeah, they have several people writing here, but
boy, Deanna and Rebecca, they've been around. They've been to they've met all these stars. They've been to all these conventions. They're out there where we are hidden here in our own layers, projecting our minds out onto the world from the safety of our own homes. They're out there like living the life of actual film critics, and they're such good writers and such
they're really good
people. And it was a joy and a treat to. As far as Rebecca goes, to work alongside her, and as far as Deanna, to have Deanna actually refine and help me become a better writer. Like, I can't say how awesome that is and how cool those guys are. When we needed questions for our early episodes, we haven't had questions in a long time because you people don't write us questions anymore, and we can't keep bugging Deanna and Rebecca. But when we needed a bunch of questions, Gianna gave us a whole pile of them. Like they were just very supportive of the endeavor, even when we knew the big main thing was falling apart. So, but it's not just to support them because they're neat people. They're the real deal. Though that site is full of really great insight on current events, on current movies, on older films, everything. It's really worth your time if you're a movie fan.
Yep. Cinema scholars. Let's see, Rebecca and since this show, hi Mom, how you doing? Is Jennifer asleep or something?
I don't know. Nobody answered.
Oh, okay. Nobody answered the door. Okay.
Your mom is here.
My mom is making a surprise appearance.
This show has everything.
It really does. It really does. I heard the doorbell, but my wife must have fallen asleep.
It can happen. Your wife's a busy lady.
She's very busy. But anyway, going back to the point, cinema scholars, Rebecca, Deanna, we wish you all the best. We want success, nothing but success for you. We want so much success for you that maybe some of it shines over on us and people will pay attention to us. I don't know, but cinemascholars.com.
I haven't thought of that, but sure, maybe some of it will rub off on us.
Yeah.
It's not impossible.
The
more you read.
The more you read. All right. So, So let's just dive into it. So the master list of shows.
One last thing.
I was going to say a couple things. I have two things. See, I'm just so distracted now. I got so thrown off by a knock at the door.
My mom walked in here. My skeleton would jump out of its skin.
Yeah.
So you actually handled that in a pretty cool way.
Thank goodness they know the code to the.
I'd rather my mom catch me masturbating than podcasting here at this point.
I'm going to say either the latter will hopefully never appear. The former, I should say, will hopefully never appear on the latter.
Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry I brought it up. I couldn't resist the joke when I thought of it.
No, it's a good joke. But first, so we left you last week, dear listener. We left you with a big old cliffhanger. You remember, there was a big old cliffhanger of Ryan going, I gotta win this thing on eBay. And we're like, well, can you talk about it? And he's like, no, because I don't want to jinx it. I got to win it.
When I win or when I lose. And then, of course, I check. I was going to wait till the show was over, but I checked during the show to see if I won, and I won. And it was the Blu-ray to Married with the Mob, the Jonathan Demme film from 1988.
Which I think
I'm not going to tell you how much it cost. It cost twice what it should have cost, but it cost half of what it's selling for when you're just buying it now because it is out of print.
Well, there you go.
And that was why I really wanted to bid on it. It wasn't so much that I can't get it anywhere. It was that it saved a lot of money by doing it this way. And my bid was the sweet spot because there were 10 bids and I came in just under my number was what I won it for. So I called that one right. I had to wait. I really had to wait till the last minute, and I won it. And just real quick on Married to the Mob, the reason why it's important that I win it, because I've never seen it, Joel.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but the reason I need it is it's Jonathan Demme's film that came out between Something Wild and Silence of the Lambs, which are both classics. I don't think Married to Mob is quite the classic those are, but it was a big hit movie. Yep. It's got Michelle Pfeiffer in it. Who, if you've heard me on the show, I rant and rave about Michelle. I just think there's lots of different flavors, so it's a pick your flavor thing, but I think she's absolutely one of the best actors of her generation. And here she is in this comedy where she kind of carries the thing. And I wanted it. I just want to have it. The shelf feels incomplete without it, even though I haven't seen it. And now I get to see it.
It will have a good home.
Yeah. And it's out of print, so it costs like $100. You guys have all done that. Oh, I want to buy this movie. I mean, maybe you don't, but you go to eBay and then you're like, oh, it's $279. Great. This isn't quite as bad as that, but it's becoming one of those, and I really wanted to get it. So it's rude of me to do my little eBay adventures. I really believed in my heart that the show would be over by that point, and that I wouldn't do a full 2-hour show on Peter Hyams, but as always, I was wrong.
As we have discovered over the last 5 years, there is nary a topic that Ryan and I can't kill 2 hours on.
Except everything you're about to hear.
And maybe we could. Well, some of these we absolutely can, because we will be talking about some of these. Sure. And also, dear listener, if you hear one of these things and you're like, how did they not have this on here? You should let us know. You should let us know.
Hey,
Joel and Ryan,
we boycotted the Oscar ceremony and people spoke up. Awesome. But
yep. The movie show with Joel and Ryan Page on Facebook. I mean,
it was awesome that people spoke up and that we got to have a conversation about it without just being whatever. Mm-hmm. But if we say something you like, it's okay to speak up then too.
Yep. We deserve love. But we but we are also, you were going to mention, let's see, back when you were indisposed, when you were on the IR listed as day to day. I had asked you, were there any things did you get a chance to watch anything fun? Did you get some good movie watching in while you were indisposed? I
was mostly indisposed. Sorry, everybody, during the NFL Combine, so I mostly watched that. I'm a pretty big NFL fan, and I'm a super big off-season NFL fan when my opinion seems to carry more weight than it does during the season. So I mostly watched that, which was really nice to have some sort of news thing going on. I really feel the same way, as sort of compromised and terrible and not in tonally connected with what we're going through in the world. I was grateful for the Olympics for the same reason. I always had something to distract me that was actually happening, and that wasn't just, you know what I mean? That wasn't just my favorite movies. That wasn't just War Games again or Chariots of Fire again. Right. Although I watch a lot of that stuff too. So I haven't watched a lot of the newer things that I've seen lately. I saw Steel Dawn, which I'd never seen, with Patrick Swayze.
Oh yeah.
Which is one of the post-apocalyptic things in the wake of Mad Max. This is one of the last ones, actually. But what Steel Dawn was, this is very disappointing, because if you look at Steel Dawn, you think two things, right? You think, ooh, Patrick Swayze and post-apocalyptic, awesome. I like Patrick Swayze. I like cheesy whatever. Or you say, look at this. This looks terrible. I'm going to love this. And what you get is neither. It's such a bummer. What you get is a short remake of Shane with 80s punk hairdos and costumes. That is super boring. In a way, I admire it because it's not going for corny, cheesy. You know what I mean? It's not an exploitation film at all, which is probably why Patrick wanted to do it, and also because he found a group of producers that were willing to cast his wife in it. Which she's good in it. So that's a bit of nepotism that worked out, I guess. Yeah. But the disappointing thing is, this is neither a cheap B movie nor a really good A movie. It's neither. What do we do with this?
Yeah. I was gonna make a joke. I was gonna make the joke that is that like is a sequel to Red Dawn, but which might have been better.
Red Dawn is better. I mean, Red Dawn at least is what it is. This film's it's a Western, but it couldn't have been a Western. It would have been a cheap Western, populated with nobody. Part of it is the sparseness of it. That is, if it works at all, it works because of that. Because it's a lonely, quiet, empty world that this all takes place in. Whereas if you were going to do a Western, you'd have to have people, you'd have to have an ensemble, you'd have to have a living, breathing town and everything. Right. So that would have been more expensive and more difficult to do. So I don't mind the idea of Shane being remade in a sci-fi way, but there's nothing sci-fi about this except the only thing that makes it not a Western is the tight jeans and the crimped hair. Other than that, the big bangs, other than that, it truly is a Western in every way. That's what it is at its heart. Right. And the guys who made it just didn't make some dud piece of garbage. They just made something that doesn't work. And there you go. 5 out of 10, right? Mm-hmm. The world is full of 5 out of 10 movies. We forget that in our 10 and 1 film discourse of the present day. Here's a 5. I can neither love it nor condemn it, but
if that isn't
it ain't going to show up on any list I can imagine. So there's my quick take on Steel Dawn.
Right, indeed. I mean, unless it was directed by Peter Hyams or something, one of those type of workmen. Like, okay, well, there you go. So it's not going to appear.
It was directed by a producer, basically, and he did a decent job. It was written by Doug Leffler, who's also a producer / director. So these guys know a little something about movie making.
Right.
And they certainly knew enough not to fall flat on their faces with this. But the sad thing is, from an entertainment standpoint, it'd have been better if they had. You know what I mean? It'd have been better if they just sucked, because then we could laugh at it. And you can't really do that with this. Is a very somber, serious film. It's not what I was expecting. When I saw, Swayze's poof just shooting out the top of his headband on the cover of the thing, I thought, yeah, this is happening, And then when you look at it, I was like, what? Did this come out 88? This is like a post-Dirty Dancing, pre-Ghost Swayze film, where it feels like an 82 movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It feels like, let's do Conan the Barbarian again, except this time for $14.
Yeah.
There's a lot. The late 80s do not have a lot of that. And so, it's interesting, but it's not good.
Okay. Well, it's the first time in a while we've had Patrick Swayze mentioned on this show. So
I'm not a huge fan of his. I don't dislike him, but I'm not a huge fan of him, nor really the projects he typically is drawn to. Right. So I've not been. They're worth talking about, but I haven't really talked about them.
Sure. I'm realizing what I failed to do in preparation for this show is, a show like this really could have benefited from like some sort of jingle or theme song or, sound or something like, what are we gonna watch? What should we watch, Ryan? And
those are your Paul Schaefer-esque jingles are really fantastic. Thank you for that. You need to have the keyboard in front of you so you can kind of, but Paul's got nothing on you. Those are really, really good ones to come up.
What are we going to watch?
I think we both agree, right? Late night, he was the best at the...
He really was. It was like, we got topics to talk about, but we don't know what we're going to say on the show. What are we going to watch? And there we go. There's I'll pull that and make something out of it.
We'll see.
All right. So I broke down this master list here. We have our recurring segments like the deep dives that we spend entire shows on, which are great. Yeah, got to do a deep dive. And but we have, so we have the deep dives, and those can be on pictures, directors, actors. We have the countdowns, which also sometimes we'll do, we'll take a director or actor and do a countdown of their films.
Or genre or whatever.
Yeah. And we have the big genres. We also
countdown can be anything. Deep dive pretty much has to be a movie or a movie series, I think, to really qualify. But Doesn't, and not exclusively, but primarily.
Yeah, and then I have a thing here of just like lists that we could do that kind of are sort of, they could be genres, could be something, could be they're just sort of things that I think I think there's a show here that, and we also have eras of films that we could talk about, sequences in films. So if we really wanted to get into some of the minutia, like we had the sword fight, the duel ones. And
yeah, we really want to do car chases, and there's some that are a demand to be done, but are hard. When you start talking about go watch all the sword fights, go watch all the car chases, I mean, you're asking a lot to pin us down. At sword fights, we were able to do because we sort of narrowed the time frame.
Yep.
There's some great car chases, but it's hard to pick just a couple.
And then we have some of the other show ideas that really don't have a category. I called them, they're like brain droppings.
I call those Joel's ideas.
Yeah, that's a lot of them are my ideas. One of the most common refrains. So what I ended up having to do for this is I'm like, God, because so many of them appear in our little Facebook message thread.
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to scroll through, and of course it has to like load the older ones.
Yep.
So what I found out you could do is you can request from Facebook that they'll just download your entire history into a file and send it to you.
Wow.
And so I requested all of my Facebook messages, and then I was able to just go to Ryan.
You start at the beginning, first off, which is probably helpful for a project like this.
Well,
And then,
I mean, and it was actually, it was all the stuff that you and I have talked about, but and actually you can sort of see some of the genesis of this show coming in, because we're talking about what we're writing. What are you working on? Oh, hey, can I borrow that Willow DVD, your Willow Blu-ray?
Right.
To which you were like, you have to take care of this or I will kill you. And I'm like, yep. And
I will not be parted with Willow. Of course, Willow is not out of print anymore. Disney, to their credit, put that out. But it was at that time, and it was at that time to me. Yeah.
And but yeah, so I mean, and it's fun. It was fun to see all of the progression of our discussions, and then as we watched the larger project that we were working on sort of start to fall apart, then it turned into this discussion of, hey, I have a microphone. I have a mic. You have a microphone too. Maybe we should get together and talk and blah blah blah. But yeah, and then then it was all of these fun discussions. Of course, there are the genre lists that we could do, but like you said, Ryan, these are huge. These are too, so it was like some of these are too big, like to do a list of romantic comedies,
right?
Top documentaries, top nonfiction movies, top sci-fi movies. These are giant.
Right. They're too big.
Yeah. We are able to get into, so we're able to narrow it down into things like musical biopics, like picks on musicians.
Sure.
Biopics on politicians, biopics on Hollywood people. So we're able to instead of just dramas, we got political dramas, courtroom dramas, police dramas, medical dramas. We so all of those types of films, murder mysteries, alternative realities. Movies, mysteries
from 1971 you could do.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Survival movies, royal family movies.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah. Alien invasion films.
Those sort of come up on their own in these other.
They kind of do. Yeah.
But that's not a bad one. I like it.
School films, movies that take place like where school is an integral part of the piece.
We would have to do school films without Rodney Dangerfield.
Well, then I don't want to do it.
See, that's what happens when we're having our discussions.
Yeah. If we
there
can't,
are deal breakers that come.
If I can't spend at least 20 minutes talking about Thornton Mellon, I don't want to talk about it.
The Academy of Arts and Sciences didn't let Rodney Dangerfield in.
Really?
Didn't let him in.
Wow.
And he's like, why? I'm in Caddyshack. I'm in Back to School. I've carried my own movies. I'm a movie star. I know I'm mostly a comedian, but I'm part of the movie business, y'all. What the hell?
Yeah.
And their answer was, and he's like, I guess they just think I'm not good enough. I mean, I'm in Natural Born Killers. That was around that time he was trying to get in. Just a shout out to Rodney. Since I just pooped on him, I thought I would say, he deserves
say
to
what
be
you
in the
want.
Academy of Motion Picture
Say what you want.
He wants to be.
Yeah, say what you want. He carried films. He was.
That's right.
Oh boy. Yeah, there was a period of time there where he had like his, a Rodney Dangerfield film was not unlike, he was like an Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler films are very much a specific type of film. And Rodney
There's some exceptions, but yes.
Yeah. Rodney Dangerfield, for the most part. I mean, a Rodney Dangerfield film is
every once in a while Adam Sandler's in a movie, but mostly they're Adam Sandler vehicles.
Yeah,
and that is
if they're happy,
specific type of film.
A Happy Madison production is a very specific type of film.
Yeah.
We have legal thrillers that take place outside of the courtroom. That one we'll do at some point.
Well, we did that. We did that when we did the Grisham episode. Really,
essentially.
Right? I mean, so we kind of already did it. I mean, 3 of the 6 of those would be on that.
That's true. That is
legal thrillers is the Grisham thing. Although we could do more and exclude those.
Mm-hmm.
But that one that one I agree. You say, well, we were going to do that, but when you think about it, it's a little trickier to do than you think. Or I believe we would have done it by now because that's a favorite genre of both of ours.
Yep. Non-CGI animated movies. So this would be like the,
cell
animated films that, that aren't, basically just doing what we can to eliminate Pixar and
Madagascar and all that.
Yep.
Happy Feet.
Yep. Trying to think of ways to.
You'd have to do that because I've seen none of those movies. I mean, I can't say none, but I've seen almost none of them. So.
Right, and and it's hard. I mean, and we'd have to because CGI. I mean, it's even movies that are basically cell produced animated films are still edited and rendered and everything done on computers now. So there is
Does anyone do cell animated films anymore?
No,
when was the last
not
one?
old
Princess.
stuff.
No, Princess and the Frog or whatever. That was the last big one.
Probably a little. That probably even still had.
But The Rescuers is a animated movie that I love that wasn't rendered on a computer. So
that's where it's a chance to talk about movies like that, like Secret of Nim. Which is one of my favorites.
That's your choices. There's the Disney movies, the Don Bluth movies, and the Don Bluth Disney movies. There's a couple others that might sneak into that list, a couple of which I'm thinking of right now, but I'm not going to spoil that. Sorry, Charlie. That show can still happen.
That show could still happen. I want to do that show at some point. It'll be a hard one. Like the one that, so the original question that Sugar Cube Girl brought up was, it started with, do you have to have read the book before seeing the movie based on that book?
That's a good one.
And that was the question that she started, and then that
didn't we put that? We should have put that in questions or something, right?
We did. No, we did, and we did, and that and we talked about, and then by and large we said no, you don't have to because cinema is a different storytelling medium than a book.
But it's the reason it's a great question isn't because I do think it does have that relatively easy no answer.
Well, I'm just saying largely that was
But the relationship between the book and the movie and how you experience them and in what order and all that is ripe for interesting things. And every time we do an adaptation or we talk about one, I don't want to say every time, but when we talk about adaptations from novels to the screen, we try and engage in those ideas. And so it shows you that idea that she was asking us to address directly is, well, it feels like a little much for a show on its own. It's something we constantly engage with because it's interesting.
But that led to, so the based on a novel or book adaptations category is a little bit too large, but we at one point talked about doing a classic literature adaptation, non-Shakespeare group. We sort of did that with Dana when we did the Dana with Jane Austen, but that
remains maybe my favorite show that we've ever done.
Oh, really?
I don't know. It's a really great one. I guess maybe it's not my favorite show that we've ever done. It's my favorite show that I go back and listen to. It is my most listened to show. My most Facebook watched show. It's a comforting show to me. Yeah.
Wow.
Even though you got up in the middle of the show and wandered away, and we didn't even edit that out of the show. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff in it that's kind of
I was to say, I was so distracted. I had so many other things going on.
Now go back and listen to it. Dana and I at least are brilliant.
Yeah, well, there you go. Maybe that,
No, you're brilliant too. It's the three of us. That's a special thing. All of our guests are special to us. There's no question. You and me and Michael, you, me and Rob and Michael. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a reason. Yeah, there's a reason why so many people come back. But
to me, that's a special thing. Sharing this with them is a special thing. Mm-hmm. Dana is also special, but Dana's not you, me, and Michael. Dana brings something different. When she comes into this thing, we both sit up straighter. There's something different that happens. It's a whole different dynamic. And I love that. And of course, and I love period dramas, and I love Jane Austen film adaptations, and I loved talking about them with her, who I think is an authority on them.
Even though Dana is the same age as us, Dana has always been like the older sister that we're always trying to impress.
Kind of, yeah.
And so when we talk
cool
to her
friends and with all the,
we're like, hey Dana, hey, me too, right? Cool, yay. No, she's awesome.
So when you're talking favorite episodes, maybe that's coming up later. But that. It's hard to pick a favorite or pick a best, but the numbers tell the story. When I want to listen to, I don't listen to the show very much. There's some of these, a couple of them I've never listened to, but I always try and listen to each one once. I think that's kind of part of you get better, you have to go back and listen to yourself and see what you did.
Right.
So we do that. Plus, we get that precious watched and listened count up.
That one tally.
Hey, baby. Yeah, at least one person watched this, even if it was just me. That's one that I've returned to multiple times, which just shows you that I love it. That it's not just a show that I'm proud of, which I am. It's a memory that that makes me feel good to live.
I have a top show that is far and away there's a big gulf between number one and number two.
Wow.
For me with our show.
All right, we'll get to that.
We'll get to it. It'll come up at some point.
Does it come up now? I assumed that was a thing we talk about in this show.
It'll come up at some point. I don't need to
do it right now. Leave something for later. Leave people wanting more.
We also, and the kind of the last one here that I'm seeing.
Half of you are just here to find out what I won on eBay, right? I mean, that's the way that worked. It's magic.
Yeah, I should have saved that to the end.
No, well.
We also talked about superhero movies, non-Marvel, non-DC. To see if there's see what we could come up with, to see if there's Spawn.
I mean, I'm not even able to think of any.
Hancock, maybe. My Super Ex-Girlfriend. That one popped in my head.
That's one of those where the idea is great, but the list of movies all suck. So I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah,
I talked about Hancock on the Solo Show, baby. Check it out.
That's true. You did.
Ryan flying solo.
And we also, we have primarily over the last 5 years spent, we've talked almost exclusively stayed in the realm of cinema. But we have had a few
did some television, but not
episodes. Much. We originally had sort of this idea that we would talk, at length about TV, talk about movies and stuff. And then we both sort of leaned into the film history, film discussion.
I think the story has always been so much the launching off point. So I think if you wanted to get into with the story of Babylon 5, like it's a kind of a daunting
right.
thing to try and tackle. Even our Game of Thrones show, where we kind of try and talk about the whole deal, we really talked about the ending because that is what had just happened. Mm-hmm. We could do more of that, though. There's a couple.
Well, there's a couple of shows here. Let's see. One of them was
our sitcom series finales episode's fantastic. Matter of fact, I believe that's still our most popular show ever in terms of people who've engaged with it, listened to it, commented on it, watched it.
That's up there. That's one of my favorites too.
That was your idea. That was a good one.
We were going to do TV first episodes, like where that pilot coming out of the gate, you're like, holy crap, that pilot was amazing. Did the rest of the show, then we could talk about, did the rest of the show live up to what was established in the pilot? Blah blah blah.
Great shows with crappy pilots would be fun.
We could do great shows. One of them that was pitched to us, I think this might have been a friend of the show, Trish. Bad final seasons to good TV shows. shows that hung on for one too many seasons, which there are many. Yeah, which there are many. But
that's a great topic that I've forgotten about.
Yeah, that one's good.
All right, Trish. Maybe you're on with that one. We'll see. That's a great one.
And then we had a TV spaceship cruise, and we were going to try to see if we could do it without, like, not excluding Star Trek, but to make sure that we didn't like make it a total Star Trek heavy episode.
Spaceship cruise. Yeah,
TV spaceship cruise. And that TV spaceship crew.
We did ships, right?
We did ships as a. I believe that was a "What Do You Do" segment.
No, this was really, really early. I think we did cruise, dude.
Did we do cruise?
Yeah, I think Firefly won.
I'm sure it did.
And I think Deep Space Nine and stuff like that. We did that show. It's a very early show.
Did we do that one? Oh, boy, that's embarrassing.
So if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, that show has been eliminated from your cast. But if you go to Podbean, you go all the way back to the beginning. I believe you will find that like around episode 5 or so.
Wow. Well, that would explain it. Yeah.
Because that is a great idea for a show. And it's matter of fact, it's way more than you could ever talk about. And yet it's specific enough that you could do a show on it. So yeah, those are the great days of the show. Lean and mean, hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, and then we
Starship Cruise, baby.
Yeah, we fell in love with our own voices there. After that, and then of course you can talk about eras of films. We had the World War II films, that are in the the European theater, the World War II films that are in the Pacific theater. Biblical epics.
World War II movie fans, we got a season.
We got you coming.
Season 5 is the season of the movie show with Joel and Ryan for you. We've not talked about that very much, I have to say. But that's a genre of film that's dear to our hearts, and it's dear to some of our friends, our really good friends' hearts. And I know a couple of my sentimental favorite films, a couple of Joel's top favorite ever films. They're coming. It's going to be really, really fun too. So
yep.
So don't worry. If you've been asking for World War II, you're going to get it for sure.
Yep, we got some fun ones coming up. The Roman Empire. We've talked about Pompeii, but there's other movies in there that we could be talking about at greater length. Biblical epics.
Oh yeah.
The Bible. Hilarious book for with lots of funny stories.
Yes.
So those are some of the genres.
Yeah, talking about biblical movies, here's a little favorite anecdote of mine that I can't. It makes me laugh every time. You guys, it's not. Unfortunately, this is not ha funny. So don't feel bad when you don't.
Oh, okay.
Because. There's an old Gregory Peck biblical epic, one of the early ones called David and Bathsheba, and it's about King David and his illicit affair with the married Bathsheba and how that brings down his empire. And then there's a movie that came out later about his son, made by King Vidor, one of his last films, called Solomon and Sheba. And what I think is funny is it's going for that David and Bathsheba sort of affair sort of thing, but it's not. It's about Solomon, not King Solomon before David, but Solomon, David's son, named after King Solomon, who does not have an illicit affair, although I haven't seen the movie, but historically and even in the Bible or whatever, does not have an illicit affair with the Queen of Sheba. Her name is not Sheba, but I love how they twisted it all to make it feel as salacious as possible, even though it was made in about Bible thing for God-fearing people in an era of intense censorship. Somebody's job was still to pull the sexy out of the title in whatever possible way that you could. And that makes me smile. David and Bathsheba, pretty good. Solomon and Sheba, not so hot, but not terrible. Yeah. But very, very funny that they went back to that well more than once, even though neither of them were really much of a hit. So see, I got a lot to say about Bible movies, but so to date, I've been sparing that you all from that.
Biblical epics. I mean, they
were a whole thing for a while, man.
Yeah, they were.
And they represented more importantly, I think they represented massive achievements in the technical filmmaking because they were the early scope pictures that were really, really difficult to do and took a lot of visual flair and a lot of scale that hadn't been attempted much in other films. A little bit, but not for like a whole movie. When you got that big ass frame, you got to fill it with stuff, you know? And if you're going to tell something that's 3 hours and 40 minutes long with the intermission, you got to fill it with a ton of stuff. So there's a lot of storytelling in those. But.
Yep. And you know, when you get people, you know, when you're like, I'm going to tell this biblical epic, there's a lot of people that are willing to fund you to do that.
The show that could happen, because I watch Bible movies even today, the show that really could happen easily is, you know, top faith-based funded modern films that take place in biblical times. That's a mouthful.
Oof.
We'll narrow that down. But there's a bunch of those, some of which are very, very good. I don't want to ever do faith-based movies. I honestly don't want to watch a bunch of Kirk Cameron movies.
No. That will never happen. That will never happen. This show,
but the ones that take place in biblical times mine a different kind of thing.
Yeah, you're talking about like Noah, that Russell Crowe.
Well, Noah. I wasn't thinking of Noah. I think of Noah as a historical epic more than like a little Bible movie. But you know, Joseph Fiennes did one. Can't remember what it's called now. I mean, he plays a Roman centurion whose job is to investigate the possible resurrection of Jesus, and that's an interesting way to come at that story, and it's full of really good actors. There's one about the story of is that
Joseph Risen? Mary is that Risen that you're talking about?
Tween Jesus, which one?
Risen, is that what you're talking
Risen,
about? With Joseph?
That is what I'm talking about. There's another one about the Jesus family, Joseph and Mary and Jesus, moving back from hiding back to their original homeland and being chased by some Romans because somebody is starting to believe the rumors about them. And they don't really believe Jesus is something special. They just want to kill the rumor. And Sean Bean is in that. And that's a very clever film. And there's a bunch of these. So there's a great one where it's like the final temptation of Jesus coming in and out for the desert, where Ewan McGregor plays Jesus. There's a film where Rona, is that her name? The from Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Social Network. Rooney Mara.
Yeah, Rooney Mara. Yeah,
where she plays Mary Magdalene, and it's with Joaquin Phoenix. We talked about it briefly in an end of the year show. There's a bunch of very worthy, intimate films, biblical films like that have just come out in the last 10 years. So I kind of did the show here. Maybe I won't do it. But if you want to hear more about those, it really is one you kind of got to ask for, because I'm assuming you don't want to hear about those. I mean, just the term faith-based brings up an idea that it's a crappy thing. It's a fireman struggling with an opportunity he had to cheat on his wife, but he didn't, and Jesus loves him now because of that. Like, that's the kind of
that college professor that's like, God is dead. Yeah. And then the student stands up and says, no, I can.
And then there's the really dumb ones like The Shack or Heaven is for Real, or, you know, they're not even badly made movies, but they're saccharine, like Hallmark Channel sort of takes on faith, which I tend to shy away from.
I do.
But the Bible The Bible's a period movie. There's a sense of adventure to it. There's a sense of transportation to it. There's all this stuff that I am drawn to. And so I am drawn to those. And I've seen most of them. And we could talk about them. So it's just an
interesting.
idea.
That would be interesting. All right. Let's see. Some of these other ones. Let's see. Rom-com couples. These are some lists that we could do. So picking out our favorite coupling up.
It's
super
easier
villains.
than just flat out rom-coms, but it's
well, that's what I mean.
Same show.
That's what I mean. It's narrowing down that.
Yeah.
That trying to narrow down that larger topic. Super villains.
Part of the problem too is that our regular recurring movie club guest Shauna hates rom-coms, so we don't even have a woman we can talk about rom-coms with.
I could find us a woman that would talk rom-coms with.
Well, I really think the two
you
of us
don't like rom-coms though.
I do like rom-coms, but that's not the point. The point is I really feel like that's a category that needs another perspective that I'm not able to bring to it.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think two middle-aged white guys, one who's married, one who's not. I don't think that our opinions on rom-coms are really going to carry a whole lot of weight unless
I suspect our audiences don't much care what we think about them. But if we're wrong about that, audience, tell us.
Mm-hmm.
And Joel, if you've got an idea for a guest that we can have a friend that wants to talk about that stuff, let's do it. Because I think that'd be super. I mean, it's fun. They're fun movies, and they're fun movies to talk about. It's a different tone that you get. You get to be gossipy, and you get to talk about the whole thing. It's neat.
Scariest artificial intelligence.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That one's one of your early ones that you came up with.
I like that a lot. I forgot I came up with that, but that's a great one.
Yep, scariest artificial intelligence.
My mind, it's good because my mind is flooding with ideas.
Yeah, you just go. Yeah, that one's really good. Johnny Five, super scary. Yeah.
Oh boy.
This one originally it was movies based on SNL characters. But I also feel like there's a show here just talking about Saturday Night Live as a jumping off point for movies
and movie careers.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like that a lot.
I sort of feel like there's something there.
Or just top 5 Chris Kattan movies would be really cool.
Well, there's that, yeah. And I still think the best one. We haven't gotten the best out of Chris Kattan yet. I think.
The best is still to come. A lot of these best actor ones, with respect to Sigourney Weaver, who's still alive and making Avatar sequels. That's why you haven't seen or heard from her.
I know.
Sam
Sam
Zoe Saldana. They've all been making Avatar sequels. That's why they haven't. That's why you haven't seen them for a half decade. But we felt like, well, she's got a career we can talk about, and maybe she'll defy us and get another one on the list. But we do sort of wait till they go away to try and define them by those statistics. But
at some point, I want to talk about whether we do a breakdown of Christopher Guest and the Christopher Guest films.
Yeah, that has to happen. Or that is a thing that will happen.
Or are we doing just our favorite Christopher Guest characters, from the movies. But yeah, I mean, there's
top improv comedy films, which will all be Christopher Guest and Christopher Guest adjacent movies.
Right. Now we did the massive James Bond episode, but we have also talked about doing an episode listing off like our favorite Bond characters that would be like tertiary and the secondary and tertiary characters.
We tried to hit on that when we did that episode, but so there's certainly further discussion that can be had about that.
This one was one of mine that I think I put it in both of these categories, in the brain droppings one and in a legitimate one, because I couldn't tell if you were joking. Our top favorite athletic trainers. Which I kind of love.
It's not a joke. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm like, because in my head I'm like, I'm lifting. I could do it.
Yep.
Heroes sidekicks. We could do the sidekick episode.
It was hard enough just to pick the best monkey sidekicks.
Yeah. Well, and we could open it up and do other animal sidekicks.
Robot sidekicks, pretty good.
We have robot sidekicks.
Yeah.
Do I have robot sidekicks on here? Hold on, I'm just gonna put it on here just in case. Robot sidekicks, but that'd be
best sidekick in the history of movies is and then I'm just like, forget the person's name, forget the name of the movie. I can picture her. Hold on one moment. Who is Ed Harris's wife? I hate to define her that way because she's a really good actor.
Amy Madigan. Amy Madigan.
Thank you. Good Lord Almighty. The best sidekick in the history of movies is Amy Madigan's character in Streets of Fire.
Sure. Okay. I will respectfully disagree, but
well,
because I could do 2 hours just on Jinx.
Jinx is tragic tale. We don't talk about Jinx much because of the horrors of his addiction and the other things that he went through. But the Jinx is pretty great. Well, the cool thing about Amy Madigan's character in that movie, she may not be the best one ever, but it's if I'm forced to pick one, it's the one that comes immediately to mind because it was Walter Hill when he was casting that film, Streets of Fire, a rock and roll fable. That's his title.
Yeah.
When he was casting that, he really, really wanted Edward James Olmos for that character. And Edward James Olmos, because he's eccentric and insane, held out for the Michael Paré role, the lead role in the thing, because he could do it. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He's awesome. But Hollywood doesn't want to see him as the main character in that film. I mean, and he should know better. He should know that. He turned down an interesting role in a decent film because of that. But what happened was Amy Madigan was trying out for Diane Lane's role, and Amy, no offense to her, who I adore, was never going to get the Diane Lane role either. She's just not conventionally sexy enough, all that stuff that they wanted. They wanted this person to be a fantasy. So kind of the ultimate early 80s Diane Lane role. And Amy just isn't that. Amy's earthy and she's real and she's all this great stuff. And Walter Hill, though, liked her audition, liked her in the process so much that he said, well, here, look at, I don't think this is going to work out. We kind of had somebody in mind. We're just trying out other people, but look at the script and see if there's any other of the women in the script that you want to play. And maybe we could use you for that. And of course there aren't, name one. I can't think of any other women characters in the whole film. Really. There are women in it, but they're not characters. She read the whole thing. He sent her home with it. And he came back to her and he said, the best role in this whole stupid movie is this part, the backup guy, the body man to your hero. That's the part I would want to play.
Sure.
And he was like, huh. And he only took a day to think about it. He was like, all right, girl, you're on. You got it. You got Edward James Olmos' role in Streets of Fire. And I think it's such a cool behind the scenes story. I think Amy's so cool. I think that movie, while ludicrous, is really entertaining and seductive. And she's the best part of it. It's one of those just kismet bits that you're just like, wow, that all worked out. Sometimes Hollywood, against its own better judgment, gets it right. That's
that's true. That's
there
true.
You go.
That's a good one.
Joel, not a big Streets of Fire fan. You can tell he's holding.
I watched Streets of Fire so many times, man, growing up.
Did you?
That was one of those that was always on HBO.
Yeah.
When we do another HBO, I saw it on HBO episode.
Yeah, it's 84. So we stopped, I believe, at 83 or maybe 84. We'll see.
But that's another one that is on
a good one.
All the time. That
it's also beyond the Walter Hill episode, no doubt.
Yeah. Let's see. Unconventional Heroes is another one that we had talked about. Best portrayals of the afterlife. that is one that I know. That one's going to be
a good
coming.
one. That's fun.
Yeah, that one we know it's going to happen. This is one that that's
a disparate, tonally radically different list of films that would be on there too, which would be difficult to negotiate, but fun. It'd be a neat show. Challenge. One
that you came up with that would be really fun. Heavy makeup performances.
Oh yeah.
One where makeup is doing all this heavy lifting and that's
a great one, dude.
Yeah, no, it's a
Write that down.
I'm highlighting the ones that we get excited about.
All right,
here.
good. That's a good one.
The whole sentence.
We should have done that already. I suggested that and then completely forgot about it.
Right.
That's a whole category unto itself, I suppose.
Yep. I like this one because the whole sentence was, look, if it gets desperate and we have nothing else to talk about, we can always just take a franchise and rank the movies within the franchise.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's
that early days discussion. Well, it is. You can do it with Lethal Weapon. You can do it with anything.
I'm trying to remember who pitched this one. This one came from the outside. This might have. Was this also Trish, maybe?
And we've done that, right? We did the Matrixes. I guess we didn't rank them, but we did the Jaws movies. Yeah, I think the rankings are apparent when you listen to the shows, even if they're not called out.
Oh, correct. Yeah. We did Snowy
the Alien movies.
We did the Alien movies. Snowy cold weather films. I think this one might have come from Trish, where the snow and the cold is a key element
to the storytelling. That's not a bad one. That's a lot of movies, but there's some really cool ones in there, I think.
One of yours was favorite movie to get into the Halloween mood. That will be probably will. Did we do the one to get in the mood?
We didn't do it specifically, but those movies have all come up because part of I think the Halloween experience is to bring up the ones that get you in the Halloween mood. My favorite has always been Sleepy Hollow.
Sure, absolutely. That's
Tim
a good one.
Sleepy Hollow. I think that film just screams Halloween to me, even though Halloween isn't even really a part of it. It's just
right.
The pumpkins, the scarecrows, the fact that the whole thing is shot on a soundstage, that it's all artificial. That's mine. There are others, but that's
that movie's come up a couple of times because that's one of those that's a sneaky good movie.
I think so.
Yeah. And one of them, I know this was one that I came up with, that I children's movies that are actually quite traumatic. So they're aimed at kids, and then you're like, wait a minute, what? This is a kids movie?
Time Bandits, man.
Yeah, Time Bandits. That might have been where
I'm still haunted.
This is in this one. I can't remember if we did. So call me out if these next two. I know we sort of did as what would you do. One sci-fi movie futures that you'd actually want to live in. And fictional sports teams as if they were real.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. We should do that.
Yeah, and that brings me to my all-time favorite episode that we did on this show, which is where we
presidents,
the presidents, as if they were accomplishments. Oh, excuse me, goodness gracious, I'm terribly sorry.
No, that was a real collaborative effort. How we came up with that show and the leap of faith, because we didn't really prepare for it. We're doing a show where we're talking, where we're lying the whole show, where we're not play acting because we were being ourselves, but I wasn't sure that was going to work, and it did. So
and because that afternoon hanging out at your place, there were so many times where I could have stopped the show from laughing so hard because of some of the things.
That we were doing that. That show doesn't have a YouTube episode because it was before that. It was early in that era, but it couldn't have, because you would have just seen that we were making each other laugh like crazy throughout that episode.
So
and
that one's
and we were having to hide it and continue the act. The show it was a radio show that must go on. Visually, it would have been really tough to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have it could have been a behind the scenes look into it. I suppose that would have been okay, but it would lose the earnestness of it, which I think is what makes it work. If you could have seen us cracking each other up. So
let's see.
I love that president show. I tell people, if you're going to listen to just one, that one's pretty. I mean, that one is the only one I can promise where every second is substantive and filled with something of use. We can ramble on a bit and this and that, but that show, it's from start to finish. It was a lot of work, and it felt great when we were doing it. And if we tried to do it again, it probably wouldn't be anywhere near as good. So that's kind of how you found the lightning in a bottle for a moment.
Yeah, and that's why I'm scared to do the fictional sports teams as if they were real, because it's the same concept. But it would be worth trying again. And
you'll see it work before. Maybe it'll work again. Maybe we would just not. Maybe it wouldn't. But we were more than most shows and more than most weeks. We were ready to scrap that whole thing if it sucked. Mm-hmm. Whereas we've had plenty of shows that didn't go quite the way we wanted, or I didn't, whatever, where we're like, well, we said it's out there. People might find it interesting. At least the work we're talking about is interesting. So we kind of share all that with you, the bumps and bruises along the way. It was part of it's truly part of our mission statement, was to not edit ourselves to make ourselves look great. You kind of get the honesty. You lose the honesty and whatever spontaneity we have to offer when we do that. So we don't do that, but we'll see. But that one, if it didn't work, that would have been a horrific show to listen to if it wasn't funny and didn't.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So
we could rank our top sassy best friends. This one will be a B segment at some point.
Who's that comedian you like that I'm always ripping on? He's really funny, but he's something about him. Patton Oswalt. We could do best sassy best friends, but that Patton Oswalt played actually, and it would work. He's got enough of them.
Yeah, he does have a few. And I think
I have a favorite, so that tells you something. I think my favorite is the guy he plays in The Lifeguard. Just not to spoil that episode. But
oh, sure. Yeah.
I think that's as good a sassy best friend as you're ever going to find in a movie, honestly.
Yeah. I was just watching his Parks and Recreation episode, just played. I had it playing in the background one day, and it was the one where he filibusters the city council meeting and essentially does the return of Boba Fett. And then opens the multiverse.
And the online episode, the streaming version of that, have all the outtakes of his just making stuff up.
Of him just continuing to go on, and they just let him go, and he's almost hyperventilating because he wasn't breathing.
That is a tour de force, no question. That's not a sidekick or whatever, but I'll take it. That's a really, really good moment for Patton. Yeah, my favorite of his is in his show in AP Bio when they're trying to come up with, and this is a cue. I can't play it because you can't hear what I play when I play it. Joel has to play stuff when we do it on Zoom, but they have trying to come up with a theme for one of the school dances, and he really wants to do a theme based on Frank Marshall's movie version of Congo. I mean, anyone who knows me, you all should know me well enough by now if you're still listening to this episode at this point. Congo, yes. I mean, and he just gets into all the details, and he's got this whole pitch that he gives, and it's the women, they're all sitting around and they're all sitting around and they're like, and I had this, and I was going to play it whenever we, tripped into a love affair with something that's not lovable at all, like Congo.
Hello, ladies.
We need you to sign off on.
Do it. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you. But I was thinking that a good theme for the dance would be the movie Congo, based on the Michael Crichton novel. It's got everything teens love. It's got gorillas. It's got lasers. It's got a character named Herkimer Homolka. Seen that look? Got that look from Brenda for 10 years. She hated all my ideas too.
So yeah, it's
you cut the part where that I actually did the take.
Mary? It's just obscure movies that no one's seen. Don't make great
dance themes.
You guys have never seen this. Okay,
that's the cue I have.
You got to watch this, all right? And movies
obscure movies that no one's seen don't make great dance themes.
That's really good. I'll have to get that on.
Funny. That's a movie lover's moment, honestly.
Yep.
Not a cinema fan or a film addict, but a movie lover's moment in the film. And he is funny. Herkimer.
Oh, that's funny.
Congo. We could talk about that someday.
This one there'll be one that'll be
Michael Crichton films, maybe.
That's true. Oh boy, that's a lot to choose from.
Well, some good ones too.
Best/worst year movie from the year that you were born. So
I was born in 1972. It's easy. Too easy.
Alan
when were you
Smithy
born?
film,
What's your best?
1974. So that's All the President's Men.
Yeah. Mine's The Godfather. I mean, they can't. That's why that show is not happening.
There you go.
If a bunch of people sent theirs in, and we could have a debate about it or something. But
sure,
because it's not a terrible idea for a show, but it's just
maybe I find a multi-generational some multi-generational guests, and so we can get some people who were born in the 90s,
or even if you could find enough people to disagree that those weren't the best movies of that year.
Yeah,
we'd have something, but you can't get into The Godfather. I mean, the best movie of the year, you get into the Saving Private Ryan, and I mean, you just go through the list, and it's all the big, best, iconic stuff, of course. So and those things are sort of reserved for like not needing the birthday gimmick to work, basically. So that's why that one flunks. Not bad. It's the right idea, but you can play it out in your mind as to what it would be, and it doesn't really fly.
It would be fun to talk about Alan Smithy films sometime. Films
I only know a couple. I'm pretty good at avoiding Alan Smithy films. But it's an idea, and the Alan Smithy idea is fun.
Right. We were going to, at some point, do a list of our favorite secondary and tertiary characters in the Star Wars universe.
Do you know the name of the non de plume that has replaced Alan Smithy by the Directors Guild?
I don't.
Because we'd have to include those too, because they're the same. They just different name. You don't have to look it up. I know the answer. I'm asking you for fun.
No, I don't. Roderick
Thomas Lee.
Thomas Lee.
That's right.
Oh, that's
because once Alan Smithy Burn Hollywood Burn came out, they felt like they couldn't.
Yep, can't do that anymore.
It wasn't it was an admission that your film was crap, but you couldn't use it anymore.
And then I think that there's something to this. This one is we take movies that have the same subject matter that came out around the same time. And compare and contrast them, like Tombstone and Wyatt Earp and
Mission to Mars and Red Planet.
Sort of talk about those. One question that you have brought up a few times is at some point I have to tee you up so that you can tell us why the X-Files movies are criminally underrated.
Oh my God, they're criminally underrated.
So yeah,
you want to know why?
Point. Well,
they're just really good movies. That first X-Files movie, it's just a really super good movie. Now, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. You have to be mired somewhat in X-Files conspiracy and the big alien invasion plot line, the through line of those shows, which diehard X-Files fans tend to like less than the standalone creepy shows.
Right.
But that first X-Files film, just by Rob Bowman, the TV director, it's got a huge scale ending. It's got a neat conspiracy. It's got lots of fun visual references to Hitchcock, to all these other filmmakers. And it's got some really interesting character development that, compared to the way characters' relationships develop on TV, is moving at an incredibly fast pace than you're used to from these two characters. Because the constraints of TV, you don't want to evolve dramatically every episode. You got to do this 24 times a year or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So the film brings their relationship a long, long way, which I think is really, really positive. And the second film, which is the standalone film, is not nearly as good because there's just not as much at stake in it or whatever. But it's got it's a really interesting, that 20 years later sort of thing where you join these people and you see where they're at and you see what the differences are. And that drawing you back into the one last place kind of thing. It's got all the positive aspects of that kind of storytelling, which I also think is strong. It's not a great movie, but it's just, what did I say? Criminally underrated. Both
criminally underrated.
Are really outstanding. I don't think that's a show. I think you just queued me up, and there's my opinion. And I could talk more about those movies, but they're both good in their own, in very different ways. And I admire them both a lot, and we'll watch them still from time to time. Whereas the X-Files show, while great, I don't have time in my life to revisit that thing very much.
Right. So yeah, I mean, we also have, so we've also talked, we've already done some, like we've done some Spielberg episodes where we've broken down different areas of time periods in his career. But we have, so we're going to do some deep dives. Obviously there's some biggies that we haven't touched. Spielberg, Lucas, Scorsese, Wes Anderson, Christopher Guest, James Cameron, Spike Lee, Michael Mann, Stanley Kubrick, the Coen brothers. We have, and I'm sure I'm leaving off several that will come up at some point.
Ridley Scott. I mean, but I think the challenge there is that Ridley Scott, we did Alien already. Mm-hmm. We're going to do Blade Runner this year sometime, we think.
Yeah.
Some of those films, Spielberg films too, you can do a whole show. You can do a whole 2 shows with guests on Close Encounters easily.
Yeah.
And I know that we don't, can't you just say if it's good or not and get on with the point? But that what we do is get into all the details, why they work, why they don't. We dissect these things.
Right.
And and that's not, admittedly, that's not for everybody, but that's what I'm good at in particular. And Joel is good at playing along with that and at humoring me for being good at it and making me feel good about being good at that. That's why the whole thing works. So those could all happen. You wouldn't do the Spielberg films we did, even though it was loaded with great films, were sort of an era full of leftovers that weren't these iconic pinnacles of cinema. I don't know how we would do a Francis Ford Coppola thing.
Right.
And if we did, would we talk about Great Gatsby? Would we talk about Patton? The films he didn't direct. I mean, it's tricky, but we have but the good news is when you rattle off that list, Joel, is look at all this stuff we haven't even done yet. We have so much stuff we can do. That's a comforting thought for us when we think along those lines.
We did Sigourney Weaver, but we haven't touched Meryl Streep. We haven't touched Emma Thompson, Glenn Close, Reese Witherspoon, Harrison Ford, Denzel Washington.
But again, I wouldn't say we haven't touched them. We have.
No, but I mean, we've touched them in terms of, but we haven't
not as their own
broken
topic.
Down as their own topic. One of them that I like that you brought up at one point was we should do a list of Nicolas Cage movies post movie star era.
Those are getting better and better as we just.
They really are. They really are. Yep. Deep dive some of the movies that we know we're going to deep dive. We talked about Blade Runner. We could do a whole Godfather thing. Mad Max, I know we've talked about doing.
Yeah.
We've talked about doing 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes.
We've also talked about doing deep dives on the Steven Spielberg, George Lucas relationship. Mm-hmm. At some point, we are going to do an episode talking about the scores of John Williams. Mm-hmm. Somebody had pitched to us about doing a show about the year. This might have been Ben, maybe the year 1999 as the greatest movie, greatest year in cinematic history. All of the movies that came out in 1999.
What was the best movie in 1999?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Top movie was The Phantom Menace, but I don't know it. And I think Sixth Sense came out that year as well. But it's hard to do a year episode when I don't even agree with the premise of the year. We sort of did a half year episode about 2005, and all of those can come up. That would have been awesome.
Let's see, that was movies released in 99, so that would have been the 72nd Academy Awards, and that was American Beauty.
Yeah, so I humbly, severely disagree that that's the best movie in any sort of year. Yeah. So it's a tough one to engage with on that level, but we could go back and do that. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Just saying, I suggest
you look into 2005, and I suggest you look deeper into 1989. That might be the 9 you're thinking of.
Maybe I'm thinking. Oh, you know what? I bet I'm thinking of 1989.
No, I don't know, but 1989's got a lot to recommend it. 1999 does too. Hell, any year has got tons of great stuff in it and tons of not so great stuff in it. So, so when you're going to sit there and say, oh, best year ever, if you're talking about 99, I assume you're talking about, if you're not talking about Phantom Menace, what are you talking about? You're talking about The Mummy. I mean, that's fun, but what are you really talking about? The Matrix? I kind of like, nah.
Yeah. I remember in college, the argument was it was 1939 was the greatest year in cinema.
Which history. It is. 1939 is still Gone with the Wind. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Wizard of Oz. So the list goes on and on and on and on and on. It's a huge film. Hunchback of Notre Dame came out that year. The Charles Laughton one. There's more that are just huge. Yep. I'm not thinking of them right now, but 1939, when you look at it, especially since there were so much fewer films then, is tough to top. It really is a film full of dominant performances and great movies. And if you look at 38 and 40, you see that those were also incredible years. So that whole era was kind of amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about 39, we're not going to have a Gone with the Wind deep dive. I'm not going to want to do that. So we really could engage with that year in a way that it's harder. But I think if we did that without Rob on board, we'd be doing ourselves and audience a great disservice.
Right. Well, that plays in a category
1939 is definitely where Rob comes roaring in to tell us everything we need to know.
Yeah. There's also there's an episode idea that we came up with that I'll bring up in a little bit here that is kind of along those lines. But
hey, 39, 69, 89, 99, there's a pattern there. And those are all years that kind of jump out to you for one reason or another.
I'll just say it. We had talked about doing a show of the top Madonna performances, but we don't invite Michael to on the show. Where we just talk about Madonna and he doesn't get to be on.
That is his punishment.
So, earlier in the show, you talked about sequences, and how we at some point we will do a car chase one, but it's that broad scope.
Maybe multiple ones. Depends on how long we do this. You can narrow the parameters of that really. Yeah.
You could do one of car chases in San Francisco.
You could. You really could.
And but they're they are difficult and take a bit of. Here's some other sequences that we've come up with. Suspenseful builds, top, the best building of suspense. Worst lines of dialogue in otherwise good movies. Our favorite twist endings. Our top title sequences.
Oh yeah, that's a fun one, huh?
That would be a fun one.
Shit, I could do just best studio logos through the ages.
We could do a studio.
We could do a whole March Madness bracket for those actually, and completely
that would be kind of fun.
This is an idea.
Hold on, let me write that down. Studio logos.
I'm a big logo fan, man. That's a big part of the movie. It tells you the movie is here. Movie time has come. I mean, it's the day before Christmas of the Christmas season. It is a fantastic thing that I love about film. So,
let's see. This one was pitched to us. Jump the shark moments. A moment where either a movie jumped the shark, or we could open it up to TV.
It's a TV idiom that would make sense to do it in TV, but. Sure.
We could list our top 10 cameos.
Jump the Shark, if you don't know. I think we all know, but Jump the Shark comes from that moment in Happy Days where they all went to Hawaii together and on
I didn't know
skis.
They didn't even go to Hawaii, wasn't it? Didn't they just set up a thing in Al's parking lot?
Is that right?
Is that right? I got to look that up now because I'm remembering.
I thought they were on vacation somewhere, and that was It doesn't matter. The point is, on water skis, I don't know how you do it on water skis in a parking lot either. Right? You gotta have a boat and all that stuff. Fonzie's does this stunt where he jumps over a shark on water skis, and it was considered where Happy Days went from being a good show to being a bad show. It's the moment, the fulcrum upon which that happens. Of course, that's literally jumping a shark. In LA Law, which was a great show, Rosalind Shays, the lawyer who's making a hostile takeover of the firm, played by the great person whose name I can't remember. She falls down an elevator shaft.
Yes.
And that's the jump the shark moment. So there's some really fun ones. I mean, in TV, there really are moments where like, that's where you went wrong. I mean, there you go. You did the bad thing. And that is a fun topic. The list of them. Oh, it's fun because we could go online and just find a list of them. We wouldn't even have to dream them up and just react to all of them, which would be kind of groovy.
Look, yeah, it was, they went to California. It wasn't.
Okay. Well, either way, it was.
You're right.
They were already in California. Of course, they were in Milwaukee, but they were actually in California shooting. Yeah, so this was an episode where they went outside the studio but shot on location.
Richie had to decide to either take a 5-year deal in Hollywood or go to the University of Milwaukee, something like that. Is what
never the same after that.
We're gonna do.
And there are other moments too, like when did Ted McGinley joined the show? That's a big moment where something went wrong on your show.
What's your do you have a Cousin Oliver moment? Here's we're gonna do top 10 cameos in films. This one will get done at some point in some way. Dance.
Yeah, it would have to be like top 50 cameos, because how long are we going to get?
No. This next one will definitely be done. It's best dance sequence in a non-musical film.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. Let's see. Our top lines after someone kills someone.
Stick around.
Blow off some steam, Bennett.
Well, that's the best because it's the worst.
Yeah.
Stick around's not that bad. Simple, straight to the point, no pun intended.
Trisha's pitched this one a couple times. The top character entrances, like the first time we meet
That's a good one, except that my mind goes, how many entrances are there? Like, what do I have to evaluate to come up with something resembling a definitive list of that?
Right.
It's an intimidating subject, and yet it's a great idea. There, a lot of these really do fit that pattern, you know.
Yep.
All my favorite sequences in films are dance sequences, so that would be a fantastic one where I'd just be tripping over myself with love.
Yeah.
There's nothing more cinematic than when the music kicks up and people dance. I mean, there's nothing more cinematic than that. That's
Especially in a non-musical.
Well, we've talked about them in a few. We talked about couple of my favorites. The one in Legend, it just takes my breath away. The one in Fisher King. I want my whole life to be that dance sequence in Fisher King. I want to feel that way at some point. I just find that to be miraculous and glorious and wonderful. Yep. So there's a whole bunch, but those are top 2 that come to mind. Sorry to go back a couple of steps.
No, it's all good. We like with the sword fights, we're gonna do gunfights at some point. We're gonna do top
shootouts, just Western shootouts alone.
Yeah, Western shootouts. Yeah.
I won't commit to this, but if you want to see a great one in an underrated movie, check out the shootout at the end of Open Range. That's a good shootout. Really, really good.
We are going to do the top Star Wars battles. 10, going kind of like worst lines of dialogue and otherwise good movies. We were going to do 10 seconds that are awesome and otherwise mediocre or bad films. So kind of the other
great
way.
Idea. If I could think of 10 of them, I would do it. I swear. That's a hard. You can kind of think of a couple. I know they're out there. There's 100 of them out there, right? But what are they? That's a research project that is difficult to Google, and that is why it gets put on the back burner, basically.
But how do we get here? We get to these topics by throwing out a bunch of absolute nonsensical ramblings. And so I thought that would be the best. That'd be the best way to end the show. Is nice. Some of the topics that have been thrown out are best Anthony Quinn accents. Our favorite Lost ripoffs.
There were a bunch of those, man. Everybody wanted to be the next Lost and didn't really appreciate what the responsibility of creating Lost really was.
Yeah, our favorite old people who grow younger and then go off into space. This one was good. Our top 5 Hunger Game movies. One of them is bound to be a huge surprise.
Did I write that?
You wrote that one.
Oh, that's
that
awesome.
One.
Sometimes I'm even funnier than me. That makes
God.
My own joke is making me laugh.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Our favorite Treehouse of Horror bits. Our top 10 South American political dramas.
There are many to choose from.
Top 10. This one was it. Top 10 grumpy Wilford Brimley line readings.
Wilford Brimley.
That one brings me joy. We see Ron. This was legit thrown out. I don't know if this was. I may have thrown this out, and I don't know if I was for real or if I was joking. Doing a deep dive into Ron Perlman films.
Yeah.
We critique our favorite critics. Top 5 movies that start with the letter X. 90s movies with Sting songs for the closing credits.
There are a bunch of those. Holy smokes.
Yep. Top movie viruses scarier than the coronavirus. Top 10 Fletch disguises.
That's awesome. Fletch is super good.
And the 5 best Topol belly laughs, which you wrote them up. Do you want to hear your top 5 Topol belly laughs?
I actually made the list. All right.
You made the list.
I have no memory of this whatsoever, so this will all be new to me.
Number 5 is Galileo. Number 4 is the Topol belly laugh. This is what I was doing when you logged on earlier, and I was trying to find Topol, listening to Topol things. I was trying to find these laughs. Number 5 is Galileo. Number 4 is Winds of War. Number 3 is Topol's belly laugh and For Your Eyes Only.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then number 2 is Fiddler on the Roof. And number 1 Topol belly laugh is, of course, Flash Gordon.
Everything that comes out of his mouth in Flash Gordon is money.
Last week we came up with best hats. Best hats in film that you and I couldn't pull off, or we would discuss whether we could pull off those hats.
Not bad. I would like to do the everlasting legacy of William Hootkins.
Of who?
William Hootkins. Look him up.
William Hootkins. All right. Let me write that down here. William. And then you have the idea you kept pressing me on, and you've pressed this on me a couple times. 120 Billy Joel songs in 120 minutes. Yeah. And that, is that
it can be done. I mean, I don't think anyone wants us to do that, but
someday we'll have a
discipline involved.
Yeah, we'd have to sit here with a stopwatch and just moving on every time. And
you got to make the list so that you can read it. You don't want to be trying to remember them in between segments. That'd be a big waste of time. But you make the list. I'm telling you, we have something to say. This is what's fun about this idea. You and I both have something to say about every single one of those songs. Every single one of them. From the biggest hit to the most obscure other, thing. And it covers every song. He has a song for every minute of a 2-hour time period. Whereas there'd be other artists that would be hard to do that with. He's one it could actually be accomplished. And it just might, it might not, but it might be entertaining.
Maybe. There was a TikTok, like a TikTok sort of meme or TikTok trend thing that was going around where somebody posed the song Piano Man is actually about Billy Joel performing in a gay bar that he doesn't know is a gay bar.
It works on that level.
It absolutely works.
And then I guess that would make Zanzibar a song where Billy Joel is performing in a gay bar that he knows is a gay bar.
That's true. That's true. And then just, dear listener, I also don't want you to think that I've forgotten. I still have many questions for Ryan from Dr. Clock's Time Glorious Mind Scrabula. So there are many other, I do still have questions. So we will someday.
You know what I didn't realize till I tripped over it by accident, there's a graphic that you created for I Have a Question.
Yes.
I never saw that. I didn't know that. The graphic.
There's been a couple.
The graphic makes it even better. It's really fun.
There's been that's gone through a couple permutations. This last one, I have a question one, I'm pretty happy with. I'll probably keep that one.
We haven't done end segments, I guess, because I talk about Peter Hyams and I go over time, so we kind of can't have them. Yeah. But we are what we call our B segments are one of the funnest things about the show. So, and this whole show, while not a B segment, definitely was a hodgepodge of stuff.
Yep.
That we hope was diverting enough. I tried to squeeze in some substance when it came to me, and I hope that helped.
Yeah. So we have. I have a question. And we'll have that. We still have. I don't know. What do you do? We still have. We got the. Let's see.
Video. It's the only way to get what you want to watch.
So we got the Ryan's Video Corner. We have. I got to shorten this. Yep, I got to shorten that at some point. We have. Funny, though. Bye. Oh, the best one. The best theme.
Is it?
Bye. Yep. It's the best. We have, let's see, am I forgetting? Oh, we have Movie Club.
We've got Hot Takes.
The first rule of Movie Club is.
Yeah, we have that. Oh, how about some hot takes? Where's the hot take? Oh, we have the countdown, which we heard that last week. And then, oh my gosh, where is tape rewind? What do you do? Let's get
some hot takes.
Yep.
Sometimes the world conspires for you.
Yep.
And I find that if you really do try and do art, not that my hot takes jingle is art necessarily, but it's an artistic endeavor, and it's in support of a pro artist thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it works. You've got this song, you want to use it, and you've got a guy saying, let's get some hot takes on the internet in some non-entertainment related hot take thing, some sort of accounting thing.
Yep.
And him saying that fits the music perfectly. And when you drop it in, when you cut and paste the waveform into the sound editor, you did it in exactly the perfect place on the first try.
Well, there you go.
It makes me so happy.
If you want art created from where nothing existed before and art was created, that's this one.
I mean, this is just Jim Kramer.
I know, but it's the song behind it. It's the animal noises.
But the animal noises are from Jim Kramer. Like all those sounds are Jim Kramer sounds. If there's anything I brought to that, it was the ticker thing, because I didn't write the song, and the Jim Kramer clips with the bull and the bear and the buy and the sell. That's I don't recommend anyone watch Jim Kramer, but we owe that idea and that sound clip entirely to him and his show.
Okay,
which really, in my opinion, was the first sound effect heavy, clippy podcast, even though it was on cable news. The first podcast sort of ever, so he gets a little credit for that as well.
There you go.
Treating something like the U.S. economy like a big fat joke is not to be admired, but whatever.
All right, folks. If you have listened to this show, if you've made it all the way through, and there's a subject that was not brought up, and you're like, whoa, you got to put this on the list. Or did our list inspire something from you that we're like, oh, you know what you could do? Or if you have a way in on some of these other things, if you have a way for us to go, and I did also, one of the other subject is top 5 shows of the movie show with Joel and Ryan. That was one that we but if you have a way in on that, please you should feel free to let us know.
Doing a movie show with Joel and Ryan as a clip show from a sitcom, from an old sitcom, is definitely
that was we talked about that
but as funny as that is, and it's super funny, it would get old too quickly, I think, to really work as a show. But it's such a great idea. It's just, we don't have a show this week, so let's just do 10 minutes of us sitting there going, remember that time that we talked about whatever, and then
I think I have
show a clip from another show.
Yeah.
Also, that would be harder to edit and put together than an actual show, so it wouldn't be like having a week off. So it wouldn't serve
it would be an extra.
purpose.
Yeah, it would be an extra. That would be extra hard work. But
it's a neat idea.
Might be worth it. Yeah. So, all right. So, yes, please feel free to reach out to us at The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan page on Facebook, and on YouTube. If you're watching this video version, please like and subscribe there. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, TikTok at Ask Joel and Ryan. And what am I forgetting? Ask Joel and Ryan at gmail.com is our email address. You should feel free to reach out to us, send us ideas, send us your thoughts, send us your questions, your queries, your comments. We will be happy to talk to you. Do you want to be a guest on the show? Hey, do you want to be a guest on the show? Make your case. Make your case as to why you should be a guest on this show with us, and we will treat you. You've seen the way we treat our guests. We treat our guests great.
You know what the really good news is, and I know you're wrapping this up.
Oh yeah, we have fun
but
stuff.
The really good news is it's been difficult, especially for me early this year. But we've finally set up. We've started the ball rolling on a bunch of great guest appearances that are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have Maz back on the show, which I'm super excited about.
Brian,
Dr. Maz, haven't seen in a while. I think we're going to get them together, which is really super cool.
Yep,
we're going to have new double features with Rob and Michael. We got a couple of deep dives that we're going to do that Michael might be involved. We got Professor Rob is going to put on his robe for us and take us back to some classic cinema, which we've been reticent to talk about. But you can tell just now when we talked about 1939 that, we're ignoring almost whole hog an entire era of film where there's tons and tons of classic stuff and tons of classic stuff that, because it wasn't the number one film of 1945 or whatever, could be rediscovered with the help of somebody like Rob. So that's stuff I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to be fun. Lots of assignment stuff, more movie club as always, which is always welcome and useful. And we got an interview with a really renowned actor coming up. It's going to be super neat for everybody to see. So there's a lot to be excited about this season. I know we're here into episode 11, so we've already had an okay season, but things are coming that are going to be a little more interactive. And Joel is right. If anybody ever wants to be a part of that, join the club. I mean,
because we love you guys. We love you dearly. We really do.
It's true.
And so, we appreciate you. We appreciate you listening to our show. We appreciate your support. We appreciate the kind words when you have a moment and you feel so moved to tell us that you're listening. It means the world to us. Thank you for this little dive into a little behind the scenes, a little bit of how the sausage is made. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope that we have piqued your interest at some of the stuff that we are still hoping to talk about. And possibly some of these things, you may hear these topics come up again in the very short term. You may see variations on these things as we go, there's something there, but how do we figure out how are we going to talk about it? And what can we do to put our particular spin on it? But again, we really appreciate you. We appreciate every time you guys listen to our show. Every time we get that little listen to tally, warms the cockles of our hearts.
No doubt.
All right, everybody. Thank you all so much. Until next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. Remember, all views and opinions represented in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the speaker and do not represent those people, institutions, or organizations that the speaker may or may not be associated with, unless explicitly stated. None of these views and opinions were intended to malign or deceive. And now, here's the producers, circa 1982, to play us out.